So you've been involved, from what I understand, coaching over 5 million people. So you've got a lot more experience than the average guy or girl on the street. What I was interested in is what are the common thieves of success? Are there some things that just out of all those people, all of us have got the same kind of things in common in terms of preventing us from sort of getting there?
I think the most common with most people is distraction. Distraction causes distraction, and people say it's lack of focus. I say it's lack of refocus, because there's distractions everywhere. It's on our phone. It's all around us everywhere, and it's so much easier to be distracted and scroll and to do all those things than it is to work out or to plan or to set things or to set things up. And so I think that's the biggest common denominator with regard to what causes people to procrastinate and hesitate and all those things.
And previously you mentioned some of these, like self-image, self-doubt. Mm-hmm. Do you think there's these sort of unresolved issues in people that also are part of that?
No doubt. Everybody comes with baggage, all of us. And those unresolved issues, those unresolved things, it's not that they necessarily need to be resolved and completely eliminated from our lives. It's just that we need to learn how to deal with whatever's going on. They will. We can mitigate those things down to nothing if we work on them. And most people, A, don't have the tools to be able to do that. And secondly, it's more painful, and it's scary to go after and dig deep within ourselves, because we don't know what that is. So oftentimes the better thing to do is to learn how to deal with how we are in a moment. And I always say that it's human mechanics. It is that when we do something, it's physics, that when we do something, we get better at it. So if we work on snapping ourselves out of when we're frustrated, snapping ourselves out of it when we're scared, and putting ourselves in a better state or putting ourselves in a better attitude, then the more we do it, the better we get at it. And that starts to mitigate the occurrence of it showing up in our lives as well.
So and we talked about it in the previous podcast, I recommend people listen to that, but you had some baggage, a lot worse than most people probably have had. And that would have probably created issues in your success journey.
No doubt.
But you found ways to overcome it, where now you actually inspire millions of people. What, was there one thing that you did in terms of, you were intimidated and all kinds of stuff. Was there one thing that you worked on for yourself to, when those kind of thoughts and doubts and things came in your mind, or you went back to some of those moments, that you were able to kind of change, like, I'm done with that and I'm moving on? Because you obviously have moved on, but...
I would answer that like this. Unknowingly, I worked on those things. I worked on what I wanted and what I thought I needed at the moment, which at the time, because I was homeless. I worked on, getting a job, getting a house, getting a girlfriend and things like that, and making money. And
we've got the little dog there.
So I worked on those things, and while I worked on going after what I wanted, the fears came up. The self-doubts and things, they came up. And so while I was going in that direction, as long as I kept looking at what I wanted and doing the things that were necessary to make those things happen, then I didn't know that I was working on those pieces. But then once I noticed that those pieces were there and I started to study psychology, then I started to recognize, well, there's something I can do about those. And then I started to learn the processes and the techniques to actually hone in on that thing and just don't be afraid of it, but go, there it is, and here's what I want. It doesn't include that, so let me learn how to deal with that. And I learned the tools and the processes. To be honest, I learned the tools and the processes to help other people before I help myself. Right. And then I started to realize this physician heal thyself. And then I started to work on myself, and that's when things started to change better.
So if people, because you get tons of books and information, self-help, success stories, etc. And I suppose it's quite easy to just question, is all this really, does any of this actually work, or is it just great marketing? In your experience, and a lot of it, and we'll come on to it in a bit, but some of these systems that you've been involved in and developed and worked with other people on, are they generally, if you follow the steps, is there a high level of chance that you're going to be successful if you implement them?
The answer is absolutely yes. And the evidence is all around us. The evidence is, I always say to people, what do you want? And then find somebody that's already done what you want and do what they did. Check out what they did. And overwhelmingly across the board, I don't care who I've had the privilege of being around some pretty A-list people, if you will, and working with people that others might not have access to. But overwhelmingly, all of them, I can't think of one that hasn't, has some sort of regiment, has some sort of ritual, has had some sort of background in personal development or something that they learned how to, at the very least, mitigate their fears and their doubts and things like that. So I think the evidence is all around us.
Do you think it's something, we were speaking of just off camera about the Tony Robbins stuff I did, and I was immersed in it for probably about 10 years, and it was great. And I did make a lot of changes, and a lot of those still stick. But do you find that when you go through that process, whether you're being coached or you're doing a workshop, that you can do it, but it doesn't mean that now you're fixed and you're not that person? Is it like working out, you've got to continuously condition yourself?
Absolutely. To this day, I still do seminars and workshops, other people's, and certifications and do things like that. Training never stops. It doesn't. You can't look at a professional athlete and that, let's say a baseball player or a soccer player and go, okay, they just show up at the game and work out the rest of the year. They drink beer and hang out. They don't. They don't stop. They continue to train. If they want to stay in the game, they continue to train.
Mm. And do you see people that also like revert back and kind of wonder whether it is working or not, but because they've sort of stop training, essentially?
Of course. And sometimes unknowingly they stop training. And training's, might not necessarily be the best word for it. Because here's what happens. People want stuff and then they go after it. And then when it starts to show up, they forget what they did to get it. And then they revert back to doing other things, and they continue to just celebrate and just to live with that thing right there. Instead of, like the old, it's not a saying, it's the truth, that, back in the 60s when the astronauts came back from the moon and going into space, I don't know if most people know this or not, but several of them were on antidepressants and got depressed and even suicidal. And part of the reason is because they didn't know back then, what do you do after you've gone to the moon? What's after that? You've got to set new goals. You got to set new outcomes and things like that. And the ones that did were the ones that were happier. John Glenn, and some of them went into politics and things like that. And I say that because it's kind of the same with human beings. It's when we've heard this old saying, it's not the destination, it's the journey. When I say it's the voyage within the journey. Journey is cradle to grave. We're all on this journey. But voyages have a place that you disembark, you arrive somewhere, you celebrate, and you have a good time. Then what do? You go on another voyage. You take what you learned and you bring it to your life, the experience and all, you bring it to your life, and you start on another voyage. And so it's always important to set another voyage and another voyage and another voyage going out there. And then when you do that, what happens is your brain, it's the carrot on the stick. Your brain goes, oh, that's what's next. That's what's next. And that becomes our, I need to think of a word for it, but good distraction, if you will, is that we refocus on that. Oh yeah, this is what's next. This is what's next.
Yeah, I like that. And I've never thought about, and I've tried to balance that. Okay, well, this is the goal, but it's not about the goal, it's the journey. But you're right. I think having there's those mini trips or voyages within that I think sometimes you kind of lose your way a little bit.
You would absolutely, because of the voyage is like this big ominous thing, and it's all it's all out there, and sometimes that becomes intimidating in itself. It becomes something that because all of us are human and we go, that's too much, especially when we get overwhelmed. I got to, get the kids from soccer. I got to do this. I got to move. I just moved into this house right now, and moving and root canal work. I don't know. Yeah, they're similar. But there's a lot to do. And I was telling the movers when they showed up here, you never know how much crap you got till you move. Yeah. And that's a metaphor for our lives as well. When we want to make a change in our lives, we got to bring all of this stuff with us. Or we got to go, this is some of the stuff that I don't want to bring with me. And this stuff that I want to keep. And where am I going to put it when I get it? All those things as well. So it's really important to kind of look at your life as stages, if you will.